learn with me what the hell is going on. Someone needs to get this message to the defense. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm always confident in my team.
Reed's defense team maintains she's innocent, the victim of a law enforcement cover-up.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
There is so much going on. Every time I think I'm not going to record a video or I'm done editing a video, it's time to record another video, and we are 2 days in. No, that's a fact that we all, because we've taken many hours out of our lives to investigate this case, we all know that is absolutely false. This guy is just the world's biggest on every level that a person could be. Between incompetence and stupidity, Michael Proctor wins the award for a combination of both. There's just no way they could have gotten into a huge brawl in 7 minutes. It's just not possible. Who are all the powers that be? Look at the smile on his face there. Did you see that, by the way? Did you see the smile on his face in that? I didn't notice this until right now. But that it would have been an accident, the way that the John O'Keefe investigation was handled. In addition to being two of the world's smartest engineers and scientists, they are also two of the world's leading subjects. Those ARCA guys, man, they are just more and more impressive. Man, this guy is like dishonest to his core. Morning, everybody. Police cars, ambulances, fire department, emergency vehicles, and you, Brian Albert, a man who, by every measure, appears to be the man of the house. He's stoic, he's a guy in charge, protects his family first and foremost, right? At no point do you wake up or go outside and say to somebody, why are you here? What if there was a gunman? Because you don't know. How do I know? There's 40 cops in front of my very small front yard. That's the bedroom window. Here's Sonny. Hey, hi, everybody. There's my friend. Hello. Sonny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I wasn't going to record a video today, but then I stumbled upon this.
The key cycle 1162 contained the two triggers that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
That's the 3-point turn, I guess now a 3-point turn, right? Changing direction, and then
Yes.
the reverse at 24 miles per hour, correct?
Correct.
Here's the car at key cycle 1162 making a 3-point turn, driving the car onto the tow truck bed. More brilliant testimony from Trooper Paul, far and away, our favorite Massachusetts state police officer. Consciousness of guilt. He comes unraveled because he's not in control.
If anyone else was involved in those conversations,
The district attorney.
that would be Mr. Morrissey, is that correct?
Yes.
There you go. There's who our decision makers are from Michael
At some point over
Proctor's
the course of this case,
perspective.
there's
Unbelievable.
Closer up. Now you're starting to see the blurs easier.
You see those
The
two blurs?
are moving around.
For a while now, I've thought that Jen McCabe's behavior is a little odd. Doesn't try to get the blankets. This man that she claims on the stand that she loved so much. He was my friend who I loved so much. There is no possible way that Jen McCabe could have searched something at 2:27 and it had shown up at 6 something. Whatever timestamp was on that deleted wall file is the time that she did that search. And she deleted it. Let's make sure and pin it on this girl who I hope kills herself. That's a class act. You are a class act, Michael Proctor. Definitely someone should give you a gun and a badge. 100% sure that Karen did not do this.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a 6th-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor, and I am here with you breaking down the Karen Reed case. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Monday night, May 12th, day 14, if you are keeping track in the Karen Reed case. Another day of Yuri Buchanan. So good times there with lots to talk about with that. Very big day for me because my sister and I finally did it. She had been there several times at this point to Canton already, but I finally got to go to Canton, Massachusetts, which was, I have to tell you, very, very exciting. So I'm thrilled to be able to tell you guys about it because it was a trip. It was a trip. Seriously, if you have not been to Canton yet, you got to do it. You got to go. You got to go. It's worth it. It's worth it because it gives you just this incredible perspective. It's like, whoa, okay. You start to really understand, I think, the insanity of this case is the best way to say it, because okay, and I'm so glad that the jury went to the house, because the very first thing you notice when you get to 34 Fairview is that that lawn is tiny. And when I say tiny, I mean tiny. Like if 25 feet from where the lawn ends to the first stair, right? That we all know, that front yard at 34 Fairview. I'm telling you, it is small. It is very, very small. So the first thing you take away is, okay, no chance that if there were the cavalry of police and fire trucks, I don't care if their sirens are on or not, like, there's no chance that you don't know that they're there. Okay. No chance. Like, it's not possible. It's absolutely not possible. Okay. It's also absolutely not possible that if a dog was there, a dog was in that house, any dog, it doesn't even matter if it's a German Shepherd, but if it is a German Shepherd, then it is absolutely 100%, without a doubt, barking. Okay. It's barking. It's not a question. It's, you would have heard the barking outside if you were standing outside. So, because this lawn, you guys, when I tell you that it is small, it is teeny, it's a teeny weeny lawn. Okay. So, yeah, you would wake up. You would wake up. Anyone would wake up. But definitely, if you are a veteran police officer who is the elder of 7 children total, who was in the military for however long before that, I mean, this guy would have woke up. Okay. I mean, we know now that Jen called over there at 5 a.m. and woke them up anyway. So, not that they would have been asleep, but we know they were awake. But I am just making the point. You guys, there's no doubt that whoever was in that house knew that there was the cavalry on the front yard. Okay. So that's the first point that you absolutely have to know. Okay. That's number one. There's no question. Okay. Number two, if John was on the front lawn, anywhere on the front lawn, people would have seen him there. Okay. Everyone would have seen him there. It would have been impossible to walk out that front door and not see John O'Keefe laying on the ground. Impossible. Okay. Impossible. Impossible. It was not possible. So it really doesn't, like, anything that they say, these people that are trying to tell us that John was on the front lawn and that they didn't see him, it's like an insult to our intelligence. That's really what it is. Because when you go to this house and you are standing in front of it, you're like, no chance that they didn't see him. I mean, it's impossible. So I have to hope that the jury will see it the way that I saw it, because it's just the teeniest little lawn, right? And so that was big. Okay. That was big, but that wasn't the biggest part of the day. That wasn't the biggest part of the day, you guys. This was a crazy day. I'm just sort of processing it right now. And I apologize for the background. I'm not home. Um, I am I'm at my boyfriend's house, and so I don't have my normal background. So there's a lot of this weird light. I apologize for that. But all right. So the second very strange thing that happened today. So the other very obvious thing, I'll start with that. So then we went over to One Meadows. Okay. Beautiful house. I think we've all seen One Meadows probably many a times. And when you see it, it looks exactly the same as probably the clips that you've seen, except that driveway, okay? That driveway, where the ring camera footage is, where we see Karen back into John's car, where the defense is saying that her taillight probably did crack, or right? Just a little though, not the whole taillight cover. Okay, so it's a tiny driveway. Like, I don't even know how Karen's SUV would have made the turn to go into the garage. It's a tiny little driveway. I mean, it's impressive that two vehicles are parked next to each other in front of the garage, right? So it looks much bigger on the ring footage than it is in real life when you're staring at the driveway. So that is this second like aha moment where you're like, oh yeah, of course she backed into John's car. It's like, how could she not have backed into John's car? It's this teeny little space, right? Tiny. Okay, so that's the second. So then we go to, like, I guess what would be downtown Canton, right? We first go to the waterfall, but it's closed on Monday. So if you're going to go to the waterfall, don't go on a Monday. But we went over there. Canton is a lovely town, you guys. Lovely suburb of Boston. Just an adorable, very, very nice place. So we check out the waterfall and we're like, now, okay, for those of you that don't know this about me, I am a pizza girl. Like I love pizza. I live in New York City, and pizza is like, it is one of my favorite things about living in New York City. Of course, I have my favorite pizza place, but I have made it a point to try as much pizza as a person can try and have it still be like somewhat okay in New York City. So I wanted to go to D&E. Like, this was something I needed to do. I had to go to D&E Pizza because I needed to know what the pizza's like. Is the pizza any good, right? And I have to tell you, so I figured, of course, Chris Albert's not going to be at his pizza shop. He's going to have some kid working there, of course. Duh, right? Well, that's not quite what happened. So, whoops, little miscalculation by me. So my sister and I were like going to try to get to D&E. We're like having trouble finding it. So it turns out that D&E is actually right next to CF McCarthy's, that they are almost touching. I mean, they're the same building, certainly, and I think they're right next to each other. So we were going to CF McCarthy's, and I kept going to go to the pizza shop, and there's Chris Albert standing in the doorway to get into the pizza shop, but it wasn't open yet. So we had to wait because I was not leaving without trying the pizza. This is all very surreal, I have to tell you, of course, after staring at these people for the last year. It's a little weird. So then we go into, I had to try. I'm a pizza. I had to know, is this pizza any good? I had to know. You don't understand. Like pasta sauce is this thing that in my family, we take this like very seriously. And so it's all about the sauce. I had to know, is the sauce any good at D&E Pizza? I see some people in the comments like, no way, you didn't try the pizza. Had to, you guys. Had to. You have no idea. It's been killing me. Is D&E any good? So I'm gonna tell you that in a minute. So then we go to CF McCarthy's. Now, here's the other thing. CF McCarthy's is a tiny little bar. So even in the footage that they've been showing in the last week, right, from CF McCarthy's with John and Karen, because that's, of course, where Karen meets John the night, in a few hours, the night before he passes away on January 28th. So we're sitting in CF McCarthy's and we're trying to figure out like where are we in relationship to the footage. Very small little place, very small, cute, very good French fries. So finally, we were a little we thought perhaps somebody may have wondered what we were doing there, because we looked a little suspicious, like we were a little shady, like who are these two chicks and why are they just kind of like wandering around aimlessly our town, right? So skipping over that part. So then finally we head into the pizza shop and it's just us and Chris Albert. I mean, that's it. Us, Chris Albert. He's listening to Boston sports. It's like your standard, very cute little pizza shop. I mean, it looks like any other pizza shop. It could have been anywhere, right? Because I have been to many. And we got 2 slices of pizza. And I wanted to be able to be like, it was terrible pizza. It was really not good. It was like, but actually, I have to tell you, it was pretty good pizza. I'm not going to lie. I would be lying. I would tell you, like, out of a 5 stars, because I've had a lot of pizza, I have my 5-star standard, and that's really hard standard, but I would say his was 4. It was definitely a 4-star slice of pizza. So Chris Albert does know how to make pizza, and his sauce is pretty damn good. So there you go, Chris Albert. You're getting a nice review from me. And my sister did also see Colin Albert, kind of, running in and out of the pizza shop. So this definitely really happened, and it was a very surreal experience, I have to tell you. But this is the thing about, when you go to these places, like here we all are, thousands of us, right? Like we're thousands of us. We're watching this trial. We've been following it forever. But these are all just like regular people, right? So, yeah, you go into the pizza shop and there's Chris Albert. It's like, okay, this is cool. All right. Yeah, weird, but cool. Okay. So the whole thing was very surreal. We did also go to Dedham, down to the courthouse. We had just missed everybody on lunch. But if you haven't checked out Canton, you haven't checked out Dedham, they're beautiful little places. I would recommend it because it completely shifts your perspective, and it really, really does. I mean, it really changed the way that I see 34 Fairview. I knew it was small, but I mean, when I tell you it is a small front lawn, it's just fundamentally not possible to not hear what's going on outside. And it is fundamentally not possible that someone could be a 6'2", 210-pound man could be lying anywhere at any time of the year on that front lawn at any place and you not see him is really it's absurd and it's insulting. So we should all be insulted because it's ridiculous. That's the deal. So that is my little Canton report. You got to check it out. It was a trip of an experience. Absolutely. Yeah. And I thank you guys. Thanks for all the support. I see lots of people in the chat, which is super cool. I'm just learning. You have to bear with me with all this because I am just learning how to use the stream and how to show things up on the screen. So, bear with me, but I'm doing it. I'm figuring it out. Yeah, it's fundamentally not possible for John to have been lying on that front lawn. So that, of course, begs the question, what happened? Right? What happened? What happened? What happened to John O'Keefe, guys? What happened? Now, here's something else I'm going to bring up here because I want to hear your opinions. I wasn't going to talk about this, but it just came to me now. So my boyfriend assumed, because he's only hearing all this like third hand, right? He had assumed all along that, John O'Keefe must have been fighting in the house and stumbled out of the house, wherever, and then collapsed on the front lawn, right? And he assumed that because, he's a bigger guy, probably been in fights sometime in his life, and kind of knew that, all right, you're beat up, you could just collapse. You know, you're drinking all night, you're beat up, you collapse on the front lawn. What he was saying that was really interesting was there is no, in his mind, it would be very difficult to move John. If John was knocked out in the house, it would be incredibly difficult to move him. And in his mind, he thinks it would take 3 guys. Okay, now to try this, we did a little experiment. He's about 200 pounds. So he like played dead on the ground and asked me to try to move him. You can imagine how this went. It didn't go great. Okay. I wasn't moving him. It wasn't happening. Maybe if we had like a sled and I could kind of just spend the whole night trying to get him on a sled, I might have been able to like, you know, somehow get him out, but not up through a cellar door or upstairs. So how would John have gotten out of the house if he's beat up in the house? This has now become a real legitimate question in my mind that I am asking. So if you guys have thoughts about that, I would love to hear it. Now I have a theory. I have some theories that are potential about who would have helped Brian Albert get John out of the house, but it couldn't have been Brian Higgins, because Brian Higgins, as we saw today, was already gone, right? He was at the police station at 1:30 and was home butt dialing Brian Albert by 2:30. So it couldn't have been Higgins. So who would have been at the house helping Brian Albert move John O'Keefe out of the house and onto the front lawn? So this is a question, something to keep in mind, you know, sit with it, think about it, because I'm not sure that I listened to both the medical examiners, the ME that we all know and saw, and then the other ME who just did the assessment of John's brain. And the brain doctor is saying that because of the pressure that was on the spinal cord, there's no way that on the brainstem, he would have basically been incapacitated. Okay. I mean, sure, maybe. Is there a world where she's wrong, where he was passed out and then somehow, you know, comes to and stumbles out of the house and then collapses on the front lawn? Is that possible? I don't know. You know, these are all important, interesting questions to kind of sit with, because there's got to be a way, right? Yeah. So my theory is that if 3 men were involved, absolutely it would have been Kevin Albert. I hear somebody saying that here. I'm seeing it. Let me see if I can find it to get back to you. I'm gonna mess with this for a minute. See if I can get comments here. Just bear with me. Oh, wait. Oh, I did it. Yay. Oh, thank you, Midnight Mike. I appreciate your support so much. It is truly appreciated. Yeah. So I don't know. I need to hear from you. I believe it was probably, if it's 3 men, it's Brian Albert, Chris, and Kevin Albert. That's who it would have had to have been in my mind, but this is the thing. Okay. And I've had people texting me and emailing me this question, and I'll address it here. The question is, are these people all sociopaths? And actually, I think that's a great question, honestly, from a psychological perspective, because it's legitimate. Like, are they sociopaths? Because to do this and then watch Karen Reed take the fall, you would have to be a sociopath. So I've sat with that question, and the answer, and not only have I sat with it, just to be clear, because if I have a question, I'm going to go to the depths of hell and back to find the answer. I have been learning how to lie detect, right, through language and body language. And I've been studying the testimonies of all these people, like everybody, like even Allie McCabe, Caitlin Albert, the whole group. And when you do that, oh my God, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. I mean, it's freaking fascinating. Some of the stuff these guys are lying about, or yeah, I mean, there's an endless sea of lying, but it's fascinating. And in that assessment, I'm starting to kind of build a sense of what could have happened here, but they're not sociopaths. So this was not intentional. Whatever happened to John O'Keefe was not intentional. Nobody meant to kill him, I guess. At least not Brian Higgins. Right? Not Brian Albert or Brian Higgins. I don't think they're sociopaths. If there are any sociopaths, I shouldn't have said they're not sociopaths, because there might be one in the group, but I don't know enough to make that assessment right now. The other thing that I should also mention here, because I am speaking about, somebody being a sociopath, addiction. If somebody is legitimately addicted to drugs and or alcohol, it can also it can look like sociopathy. I mean, I know that sounds extreme, but you have to be careful, because if somebody's extreme in their substance abuse, it really does do a number on someone's brain. And so usually if somebody is very obviously addicted to substances, as a diagnostician, I wouldn't diagnose somebody anything until after they had been through recovery and on the other side of it, right? Because addiction has to be addressed before you can really give adequate diagnoses. But having said that, no, these people are not sociopathic. But so that begs this really great question that I think we've all had for a long time, which is motive. Okay. Why would somebody in the house at 34 Fairview, why would they kill John? Great question. Why would they kill John? And then why would they put his body outside? If it was an accident and there was a fight in the house, why wouldn't they just call the police? Right? So that's the question that I've been sitting with and mulling on for a long, long time. And before I give you my sense of the answer, I would love to know what your answer to that question is. What do you guys think happened in that house? And what do you think? Why wouldn't they call 911? Why wouldn't they call 911? So you tell me. Wait, we have a question here. Oh, you guys, it's coming in so fast I can't keep up. Hold on. Yeah, okay. Hold on. All right, I'm showing. Hi, Maureen. Okay. I don't understand the Ford Edge parked in front of where the body would be after the snowplow had gone by the first time. Great question. So the theory about the Ford Edge would have been, obviously, that somebody parked it there so that they could hide the front view. That's the idea. The idea is that they were dragging him essentially up from the basement around that gate that separates the back from the front of the house. And then because there's the landscape behind the flagpole, there's a little group of trees that would block the view from that side, but you'd still be able to see from the front. And there's a Ring camera across the street that they knew about, or I guess it's not a Ring camera. Technically, it's something else. But so the theory would be that it's possible that the Ford Edge was parked to block the view on them pulling somebody, dragging John from the back of the house. However, this is the weird thing about the Ford Edge. There are 3 Albert members that have a Ford Edge, right? So the Brian Albert had one. Colin Albert. Was Colin Albert? No, sorry, not Colin. Was it Colin? Yeah, it was Colin and Kevin Albert. I think it was Colin, actually, at the time. It was Colin, Kevin, and Brian Albert all had a Ford Edge. And the interesting thing, from what I remember, now I could be wrong. Somebody else correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that the plow driver, Lucky, didn't think it was Brian Albert's Ford Edge. He knew that the color was different. So he actually said it looked like a Ford Edge, but it wasn't Brian Albert's Ford Edge. So, I don't know. That's a theory. Now, who the hell knows why it was there? But the reason why he remembered it is because in Massachusetts, and this I believe because I've gotten ticketed for this before, in the state of Massachusetts, when there's a blizzard or there's going to be a big snowstorm the next day, they'll fine you and they'll even maybe tow you. You're supposed to get your car off the street because they're going to plow. So, yes, there are people confirming that. So essentially, he remembered it because he's like, they know better than to keep a car on the side of the street, and he had to wrestle with whether or not he was going to turn them in. And he didn't because he's known them for his whole life. I think he went to high school with Brian Albert or something like that. He's known that family his whole life. So, but Kevin Albert definitely did have a Ford Edge from what I know as well. Yes. And we know that Colin has a Jeep Wrangler because my sister saw him get in it today. Apparently it's like a gold color. But right, you can't park on the street during a snowstorm. So he remembered it because he had to decide whether or not he was going to actually like turn him in or get him in trouble or whatever. And I believe Lucky too, simply because, he had no reason to lie about it. So yeah, I mean, okay, so Tristan and Kevin had a Ford Edge. So there were 3 Ford Edges in the family, I guess. All right. So the only thing we don't know, and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have not seen Brian Albert's phone records, right? We only know that he was butt dialing back and forth in the middle of the night with Brian Higgins, but I don't think we know much more than that, right? Am I right about that? I'm not sure. Cashmere Coconut says, hey, I never catch a live, but having a psych background, I love listening to your assessment of this case. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Cashmere and Coconuts, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. Yeah, it's crazy because you can geek out on this case for forever, right? I mean, you can go down many rabbit holes. And I will tell you that I have been examining, it's just ironic because I happened to see him today, Chris Albert's testimony. I mean, I have been examining this testimony. It is a fascinating testimony. If you have not seen Chris Albert's testimony from the last trial, you definitely should. It helps with now, okay, remember, Judge Bev, of course, isn't letting Colin come in as as part of this third-party culprit defense during this trial this time. So we're not going to probably hear or see much of Colin. But if you go back, first of all of the witnesses that we've seen in both trials, Colin Albert is the one who absolutely perjured himself to the degree that within minutes of him finishing his testimony, whoever released videos that they had of him on the internet physically fighting after telling all of us and the whole world he had never been in a fight. Now, you tell me, if you have nothing to do with any of this, right? If you are not involved in this at all, why would you lie? Like, why lie? It just doesn't make sense. It's insane. Why not just say, yeah, I fight. So what? I had nothing to do with this, right? I mean, especially because your entire family is law enforcement. Like, you're not going to get in trouble. You know you're not going to get in trouble. So why not just tell everybody you fight instead of risk perjury, right? Like, that's pretty bizarre. That is not like, okay. So the other thing that turned me on to Chris and Colin Albert was actually in this trial something that Jennifer McCabe, in her brilliance, she thought she was so smart saying this. She really did. Like, and I just happened to be listening to it in slow motion because I was doing I'm getting good at the lie detecting thing, but it's not second nature to me yet. I'm still learning. So in order to catch what people say, I have to hear it in slow motion. So I'm listening to Jen McCabe in slow motion, which is basically like, torture. It kind of is a little torturous, but I really wanted to know whether or not she was lying and about what, obviously. But in that testimony, there's this moment, it's right at the beginning, actually. You'll remember this really clearly. It's like, okay, Alan Jackson is going through and he's trying to make it clear what the connections are. Okay, your sister is Nicole, and Nicole is related to this person. She's married to Brian Albert, and Brian Albert has this brother, and then the whole thing, right? He's laying out the family tree and all the connections. And one of the questions that he asks is about Chris Albert. And he asks her, and Chris Albert, he's a Canton select board member. And she responds, yes, he is now. And I'm listening to this in slow motion. And for some reason, I already knew, obviously I knew he was a select board member. I've known that forever. And I knew that he had become one after this incident. But I never stopped to think about what that meant. I never stopped to think, oh my God, wait a minute. Okay, so let's put ourselves in Chris Albert's mind for a second, or not even the Alberts. Just think about if you have children. Imagine that you have a teenager who gets himself into trouble all the time, right? He's been a big pain in the ass his whole life. He's a drinker. When he drinks, he threatens people. He does really stupid shit over and over and over again. And he ends up accidentally murdering a police officer. Okay? What would you do to protect your kid? Now, clearly, moving to another country is not what the Alberts are about. Like this group of people, they're never leaving this town. This is where they are. This is where they are rooted for generations, and this is where they will stay. They'll die on the sword before they're going to leave Canton, Massachusetts, right? So what's your next best option? Well, even though I've only ever worked in restaurants, my next best option would be get myself elected to the body that oversees the police department. Because then I have all the power, or I'm one of the 4 people that have all the power to determine what the cops in the town do, right? So it did get me thinking. It definitely got me thinking. Like, how does somebody go from a lifetime in restaurants as a waiter, working in the back of the kitchen in a restaurant, opening your own pizza shop, to wanting to run for local government? Right? Are you following me? So, I mean, this definitely got my attention. And I will also tell you from reading, Chris Albert's testimony, and from really examining it word for word very closely, he loved John. He was friendly with John. He's not happy about what happened to John O'Keefe. It's upsetting in a very real way. And that's what I mean when I say that these people are not all sociopaths, because sociopaths have absolutely no problem lying. They really don't. I mean, they just don't. They don't have empathy the way that we do. They don't have that guilty conscience the way that we do. Even if you accidentally hurt somebody, you're going to feel bad about that, right? I mean, most of us feel bad over almost anything, like bringing a coffee to a coworker and then having another coworker standing there and not having gotten them a coffee, right? I feel guilty about that. Like, that's how we are. We feel guilty a lot, right? So definitely, if you accidentally kill somebody, or one of your children accidentally kills somebody, you're going to feel bad. And I have to tell you, he feels bad. So I cannot say definitively that Colin Albert was the one that, you know, I guess what's the word? You know, made the fatal blow, I guess. I mean, I obviously very much. So here we go. I think Higgins fought him, knocked him down in the basement. John hit his head. Chloe attacked. So I believed that too, Sarah, until I started to look more closely into Colin. And I think it's quite possible that this exactly scenario happened, except it's possible that Colin walked up on this situation and then grabbed whatever was, you know, blunt object was available and like smacked John in the head to try to end the fight or to stop it. It's possible that, you know, John was winning, right? I mean, if you think about it that way, because I think if we're just looking, here is where my thinking comes from, just to be really clear. And thank you so much, Sarah, for your support. Yeah, I mean, it comes from his injuries. So I don't know if anybody has seen this. I did a whole video just dissecting the injuries, looking at the ME reports and comparing John's injuries to what it would look like if you were killed by a pack of wild dogs, what it looks like when you get into car accidents, what it does to the body. And when you look at John O'Keefe's injuries, the only two places that he has bruises are right here on the back of his hands, right? Like, geez, why might somebody have a bruise on the back of their hand? That's odd. What comes to mind for every person on the planet when you start thinking about bruises on the back of your hand? Like, oh, you hit something. Oh, right. That reminds me of that time when I was in the 7th grade and one of my friends like punched a wall and then his back of his hand blew up, right? Okay. So, yeah, I mean, when you look at John's injuries, that's where this whole discussion about a fight and about the dog, it becomes impossible to avoid. So that's the problem. And the funny thing about this has not even come up yet in this trial. Like, we are 14 days in, and the discussion about John's injuries and the fact that the Commonwealth's theory has no basis in reality, if we're looking at John's injuries, has not been any kind of significant topic of discussion, right? It's wild to me. It really is. It's wild to me. So yeah, that's where we're at in the trial, largely. You know, it's 3 days of Buchanan. I would have loved to gone for 4 because I just loved watching Alan Jackson cross-examine him, but I'm also glad to see him go. So I guess no more Buchanan. That's the end of that. He will not be back tomorrow morning. I don't know if any of you know who's testifying tomorrow. I have absolutely no idea. Curious as hell to find out. But I also have another question for all of you that I am really curious about. And I want we all have to be really honest with ourselves about this because, you know, this is a tough question. I went back and I watched all of the Karen Reed clips that they've showed so far in court. Now, I think I have them all. I might have missed one. It was hard for me to actually catch every single one. I think I got the vast majority. So I want to go through them. I want to hear your thoughts with as much of your objective viewpoint as possible, as much as we all can be objective, because obviously Karen Reed didn't do this, and it's absurd. And these are horrible people that are, you know, trying to pin this on a person who didn't do anything wrong. But with all of that aside for the moment, just trying to look at these clips as a juror, like, okay, so we don't know that much theoretically, right? We don't really know. We're open to whatever, even though I don't know how anybody could stand Hank Brennan. I mean, is this man just the most unlikable person the world has ever seen? I really, though, like, Like, okay, Lally was boring. Absolutely. He was boring. And it's true. He was boring. It's true. But Brennan is just like there's something evil about there's something just I don't know, wrong. There's something wrong with that man. It's just he comes off just like the worst ever. My God. So, okay. So what I want to do, I want to play some of these clips, and then I really, really want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Do you think that these clips, from an objective perspective, would be incriminating? Do you think that they would steer you one way or the other? Very tough to say. Let me see if I can. Can I figure this out? Hold on here. No, that didn't do anything. All right, hold on.
I remember it, but I question, do I remember it because it's been relived so much? I mean, when I see the video of me driving from the waterfall, like what I just described, tapping the brakes when I crossed the intersection, Washington over Sherman Street, do I actually remember that I kind of slowly proceeded through that green light? No, I don't actually remember that. But I've seen the video so many times that you then question, did I remember on my own? Or was my memory jogged? But I also wondered, did I say, could I have hit him? Or was it told to me that I said I hit him? And I knew I never could have said that, so the closest I must have said was, did I hit him? And I know I said I hit him, but did I really say it as many times as law enforcement's claiming I said it?
All right, so this clip, tell me, what is she saying here? Does somebody know? Can somebody clarify for me? What is Karen Reed saying? Is she saying here, because she starts out saying, okay, I know I couldn't have said I hit him, right? That's the first thing she says. I know I couldn't have said I hit him, but so could I really have said I hit him? And I know I said I hit him. It's like, what is she talking about? Somebody tell me what she's talking about. I don't know how that helps. I mean, if I'm the jury, I'm not hearing these over and over again. I don't get to go home, I mean, theoretically, hopefully, I guess, and play them over and over and over again. It's definitely not a confession. And here's the thing about Karen Reed. If you're comparing Karen Reed's statements on TV to these people that are testifying, do you notice that Karen never stutters? She never stops. She never carefully selects the next word that's coming out of her mouth. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Karen just says whatever comes to mind. And that's probably what's getting her in trouble, right? She just says whatever she says. And if that's not by itself evidence, right? I mean, if you have any kind of, psychological mind at all, it's like, this woman doesn't have any consciousness of guilt. That's why she just spews words. So, right? But not Hank Brennan. No. So it's an interesting, KCL. Thanks for your comment. So we know she's not a sociopath because it's a good question, but she's not because of how much, I would say, like how affected she is by everything. Like she hates that Turtle Boy's running around like talking about her. She would have done anything, gone to the depths of the earth to try to get the world to shut up, to stop talking about her, right? And while it might make sense to all of us that we would all want, of course nobody wants somebody, the world out there saying negative things about them, but for sociopath, it would be like attention, even if it's bad attention, is a good thing. It's a good thing. It's like the world is talking about me. See, I am as great as everybody now knows I am. I just don't think that she has that kind of mentality. I think she's going to have a really hard time. I think her and her family are in big trouble. That's what I will tell you. She would be better off if she was a sociopath, because at least if you are a sociopath, you don't have to live with the consequences of your actions. You don't have to live with the fact that you have no integrity. But if you're not, you do, because we always pay. This is such a huge discussion, but so yes. So it's an interesting point. Somebody else is saying that Karen is a narcissist. I would have put you on the screen, but yeah, I mean, I hate Karen has more narcissistic tendencies, certainly. She's definitely not a sociopath, but she does have more narcissistic tendencies. That is absolutely true. And when I say that, I don't say that to be critical of her at all. I'm just saying it sort of as a fact. And again, the other thing that I will always say as a caveat, if I am talking about any kind of what we call access to stuff, which is like personality disorders, things of that nature, well, specific types of personality disorders, borderline personality, sociopathy, antisocial personality, and we're talking about alcohol and drugs and alcohol, you have to know that it's very difficult to, if somebody's using a lot of substances, it's hard to say whether or not what's happening is because of the substances or because of what's going on underneath. That's what I would say about that in terms of Karen's kind of more narcissistic tendencies. But yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I just don't think so. I think that most of these folks, first of all, I should say this. I've been in this field. I've been working as a psychotherapist for like 25 years now, and I've never seen a sociopath. So unless you're working in like the prisons, it's an extremely rare thing to engage with. It's just not that common. Obviously, addiction is, a whole other story. That's a lot more common. And when you're working in addictions, you might start out thinking that the people that you're working with have that kind of condition, but then they get into recovery and you realize that's not the case at all. So it's very hard to tell. It's very hard to tell if there's alcohol and drugs involved also. So there's only one client I've ever met that I actually, still to this day, I'm not 100% sure whether or not they would actually meet criteria for sociopathy. So it's very, very, very rare. Is that true? Hold on. Wait. I'm trying to keep up. Everyone is moving really quickly here. Hold on. Do narcissists? Yeah, right. So one of the hallmarks of narcissism is they can't be, if you want to know whether or not you're dealing with a true narcissist, they can't be wrong. Is really what you're dealing with. You're dealing with somebody who can't ever be wrong, and they'll never admit that they're wrong. The other thing that they do is they project like crazy. They project. And it's wild. If you've ever had a conversation with someone who's doing this, we call it gaslighting nowadays. But I mean, it won't even be close. They'll be yelling at you, describing you through the lens of their behavior. And it's a trip to be on the other side of, because you're like, wait a minute, that's not me at all. You're describing you, but they cannot see it. They cannot see it. They genuinely cannot see it. So real narcissism, it's a real condition. It's not intentional at all. I mean, it's just how they are. And they very much can give you PTSD. Yes, Ryder, that is what they absolutely, if you're in a relationship with someone who has a narcissistic, now narcissism, to be fair, also is on a continuum. So you might have, we probably all, let's be honest, have known folks who would be on the lower end of the narcissism continuum, but to have a true, like all the way other side of continuum narcissism where there's sociopathy is very rare. So, one side you have very, very common. The other side is very difficult to find. We just don't see it very much at all. But yes, of course, it's, we've probably all had a lot of experiences with people who are on the lower end of the narcissism spectrum, and that's really, really hard. It's really, really hard. And so, yeah, for some of you who have dated people on that spectrum, I mean, that they can't be wrong. They just fundamentally will never admit that they're wrong. It's wild. It is a wild experience, and it's very painful if you are in a relationship with someone like that, to say the least. Absolutely. Okay, so this first clip by Hank Brennan, I think, was just an absolute fail because I have no idea what the hell Karen is saying there. So let's hear what the second one here is. See whether this one is any better.
They had pulled into the driveway before me, so I was presuming she saw my cracked ceiling and was thinking, did you hit my son? I could sense from her that she was looking at me very warily. And then when John's nephew came home, I just wanted to see him and squeeze him. It was quite uncomfortable. I sit down upstairs to the master bedroom. I said, I think I need to leave. Because I think John's mother thinks I did something to John.
Okay, interesting clip there. Again, not sure that helped Hank very much. If anything, it shows us that Karen has some real emotion about John's nephew. Right? I mean, so I mean, I'm not so sure. I mean, as a person objectively looking at that clip, the thing that would stand out in my mind is not what she was saying, is the fact that she had this very visceral reaction when she started thinking about John's nephew. So not sure how that one helped the Commonwealth. This is a great question, Heather, and thank you for the comment. Yeah. So can narcissists be aware of their behavior? It's a really good question. It's a really good question. My answer to this would be yes, and they have a really, really good reason for it, right? So they are definitely aware of their behavior. It's just that they don't see it the way that you're seeing it, and they don't care about the way you experience the consequences of their behavior, right? So they only care that now they're having to deal with those consequences. In other words, if they I don't know, spend money or steal money from you, right? They only care that now you are standing in front of them screaming and calling them out on it. They don't actually care that they took that money from you. Probably will never admit it, but certainly they're aware of the fact that they took that money from you. Absolutely. It's the meaning that they assign to the behavior that's different from the meaning that you or I would assign to the behavior, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's absolutely, everything is not their fault. Nothing. It's I can't do wrong kind of a, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And to be clear, I'm talking about narcissism, not sociopathy. They're not the same thing. They are, certainly they can come together, but they're not always together. They don't always come together. Yeah, I think this clip is fine too. And actually, I'm going to try to show this if I can. They go so quick. So that's right. And I wondered if somebody was going to mention this. This clip here, okay, there's the question about whether or not Peg O'Keefe makes that comment to Karen, which we all remember, right? The comment that, Hank wanted to show right after Peg O'Keefe testified to make Karen look absolutely horrific, which just shows you what kind of a guy he is. Right. The comment where she's like, he looks like he got hit by a car. So the thing is, okay, first off, I'm not going to go back and replay Peg's testimony, but if you listen carefully, She did not give a resounding no, I definitely never said that. She said, well, it was kind of a fuzzy morning. I don't really remember clearly what I said, right? So her on the stand, she gave like a wishy-washy, like, no, I didn't say that, right? So that's one. The other thing is we know though, both from Peg and from Carrie, that right away in the morning, remember when they're driving, when Carrie Roberts is driving the O'Keeffes to the hospital and Karen calls Carrie and she puts her on speakerphone. And in that moment, we already know that Peg was like, why'd you leave him there? Why'd you leave him at a party by himself? So we already know that John's mom was angry with Karen before anyone knows anything about a car accident, right? So I think we already have evidence that Karen would have had a reason to be weary of Peg, to feel bad. And here's the thing, and this is kind of, if when we're talking about narcissism, so I will say this here now, the reason that in my mind Karen was saying, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Is more to her narcissism, right? Because, and this is why I don't like using the word narcissism as, in a pejorative way or as a negative thing, because, some narcissists, many are very hard and impossible to be around, and right. But they often will show up differently in male and female, not to gender stereotype, but that's not uncommon for them to show up differently in genders, which is true with all mental health stuff. But it's more about like it's more like for someone who's narcissistic, it's like there's my world and then there's my world outside, and other people end up really just being like mirrors that I'm constantly projecting off of. So it is like selfishness because all you see are reflections of you. And that's what happens when you have no awareness. When you have very, very little awareness, self-awareness. When you have no self-awareness or very little self-awareness, you project. And I'm sure you've seen this. That's not just specific to narcissism, that's specific to humanism. So I think with Karen, that's why she was saying, could I have hit him? Because, she has more of that kind of like external self outwards kind of focus, right? So, and we know that, I'm not saying that haphazardly, I'm saying that after, analyzing her entire discussion with John the day that this incident happened, right earlier in the day, the entire 150 text messages with Brian Higgins, lots and lots of her statements. So, I'm not saying it to put her down in any way at all. I'm just saying that I do believe that Karen said that because she felt responsible, even though I don't think she had anything to do with it. Right. So, okay. So far we've seen two clips and neither have been damaging. From our view, it seems like neither of them are very damaging to Karen. Let's see what clip number 3 is.
And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think it looks like he got hit by a car. It looks like he got hit by a car.
We'll hear it again.
And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think it looks like he got hit by a car. It looks like he got hit by a car.
Okay, so yes, and it is all, I see someone saying this in the chat. It is definitely possible that by the time Karen gets to the house, that Jennifer McCabe had already, poisoned the waters or whatever. And I thought, I don't remember. I don't know, where did I hear this? I'm sure you guys will remember somewhere. Didn't we hear that like Paul O'Keefe was on the phone, right? And then he gets the phone call, and that's when Karen finds out, or that's when he realizes or starts to look at her differently. Somebody called him while she was at the house, I think, also, and told him that they think that Karen hit him with the car. Let's see. Yeah, it's really interesting. Hold on 1 second. Peg's testimony and the way she sat away from him in the pew. I don't know what that was a comment to. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Listen, I don't know if this statement, I mean, how does this look to a jury? It doesn't look great, right? I mean, but it particularly doesn't look great right after Peg O'Keefe testifies. And if I'm a juror, I would put that on Hank. I would be thinking, this is kind of screwed up. Like, this dude we're watching this woman testify, and now to make Karen look as bad as he possibly could, he's playing this clip right after that testimony. Like, that's contrived. That didn't happen, in real life. That happened because of Hank, right? So that to me looks contrived, and I don't know. I think if I were a juror, I'd be looking at Hank like side-eyed, like, that's a little screwed up, feels a little too deliberate to me, would be the way I would see that. So let's see. Let's go to the next one here.
I mean, I'm not sure it would be if I hadn't been drinking. I mean, I had drank, so, and that led me to question, like, could I have hit him? Did I run over his foot or hit him in the knee? Did I incapacitate him? I mean, I always drive with my music blasting ever since I was 16. And I know when John got out of the car to go into Fairview, I know my car was blasting because when I got in it the next morning to go look for him, I had to immediately turn it down. And I don't know, it's stormy. I have had a few cocktails. I didn't black out, but I wasn't as lucid as I would have been if I had gone to bed at 9 and drank a tea. But so I was fuzzier than I would have been if I had had no alcohol.
What do we think about that one? That one. The part of that stood out to me. I agree. Here, let's see. I agree. I see many of you saying that that's called authenticity, and I would agree with that. But the thing that stood out to me about that comment was the music blasting, like as if to say, I was drunk and I was blasting the music, so I could have hit John and I wouldn't have known, right? So I think, the other thing that I don't think I mentioned, but I believe wholeheartedly at this point. So I believe wholeheartedly that Hank Brennan is building a case for manslaughter, that he is actually not trying to prove murder at this point. I absolutely, I'm reading one of the comments here. I absolutely believe that Hank Brennan is putting on a case for manslaughter. I think it's dishonest that he's even pretending to try to show that this is murder. If you look at those voicemails, I mean, take just this clip from Karen and those voicemails. If that's the only information you had was this clip, so she's telling us I was drinking and I had the music up really loud, and then you hear those voicemails, you put them together, and in your mind, yeah, okay, it was an accident. I mean, if you know nothing else, is what I'm saying. And I think very much that is what Hank Brennan is trying to do. I mean, I think he's just trying to prove that she accidentally hit him. And we have to pray to God that they don't see it that way. But to my point, right? Like, Adam Lally successfully convinced 8 of the 12 jurors on the last trial in the last jury that Karen Reed was drunk and hit John. So it was an accident. Everybody agreed that. it would have been an accident. But if Lally did that, it makes me very nervous. It really makes me very nervous for this jury, no matter how we feel the situation is. That's why I'm always wanting to know what other people's opinions are, because I think for some of us, like, we can be way too deep in it to have any sense of clarity about what's really going on anymore. Yeah, so I was trying to find it. I saw here in the comments that somebody said, somebody was talking about John's father. I know John's father was close to Karen. I did not hear that he doesn't believe that she did this, but that would be fascinating. I mean, that would be a really interesting detail. DNA of unknown male. Where is the blood and the dog bites? The DNA of the unknown male blood. I'm not sure what this question is a reference to, because I feel like those are three separate things. So first off, there's a bunch of DNA, but like, for example, with the sneaker, right? The sneaker has so many people's DNA that they can't use it anymore. Because if it has over 5 contributors, yeah, doesn't matter. We can't use it. It's garbage. John's shirt, the back of the shirt had 3 people's DNA. That was the back bottom area, like kind of like where women often get tattoos in the middle of the small of their back, right? That area had 3 different contributors, one of which was John. Okay, well, great. John's DNA was on John's clothes. That's helpful. I think the other thing that we all know this. I mean, can we trust any of these people? Are any of these employees of the state of Massachusetts competent at all? Like, I think that's the other problem. I mean, I can't remember which person it was in the last trial, but it was one of the people who were, I don't think it was the DNA guy. Maybe it was the blood alcohol person who testified, where they had failed their test. Like, they didn't even have the credentials to be talking about whatever it was that they were, whatever evidence it was that they were testifying to. So it's very difficult to know how much stake and investment to put in the DNA, right? The DNA that came out of the Solo cups. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's very hard to know what to make of any of this. And this is another thing. I don't know if you guys caught this, but was I tripping, or did I hear Hank Brennan say earlier to Buchanan, this was during the first day of testimony with Buchanan, that he had given his DNA? Did somebody else hear that? That he had given his DNA? I have no idea why he would have given his DNA, but I believe that Hank mentioned that Buchanan had given his DNA. So why? Did that get circled back to? Why did he give his DNA? Yuri Buchanan. So people are asking who gave their DNA. So that, to me, that maybe says that the feds wanted it, right? Because who else would try to get his DNA? And what were they testing it against? I mean, that's the thing in this case. I think my point is that the investigation was so freaking shoddy that there's a reason why we all have all these questions. Did anybody even, you're talking about the dog bites, right, on John? Did anybody even try to get DNA from those cuts? Right? Did anybody do any kind of legitimate effort to go through those cuts and try to get DNA from them? You know, I hope somebody's investigating somewhere, because it feels like, why can't we just go into 34 Fairview and, investigate right now? Why can't we go look? If there's blood somewhere, shouldn't we all see it on the floor in the basement? Let's go, right? That's what you want to do. I don't know, it feels like we should be able to do that. Yeah, so they did do some DNA testing. I'm sure you'll hear it. It's going to come in. It was in the last trial. But the thing about it is that it was bizarre. If you go back and watch the DNA testimony from the last trial, the whole thing was very strange. Basically, they go through and they confirm that, yes, this was John's DNA. Well, that's great because that was John's shirt. So I hope it's got his DNA on it. Otherwise, that would be very strange, right? So the thing is, it also has all these other people's DNA on it, but nobody ever tells us or nobody ever tries to find out whose DNA that is. So it's just the unknown contributor. Very strange. Okay, so let's play this next clip here. Clip 5.
I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway. I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway at 12:15 on January 29th. I mean, it was quiet. The roads were very quiet. You can see it on the videos. And I was going, you know, when I've had a few drinks and I drive, I always drive extra slow. So I know my alerts aren't as sharp as they should be. But I shouldn't have been driving. But I don't think I was driving. I know I wasn't driving recklessly. I mean, I've got plenty of video of myself driving all over the place. I put my car in John's garage, which is incredibly narrow, and I had a very oversized SUV. You see me. There's a video of me driving through the intersection when we leave Waterfall to go to Brian Albert's, and I was always taught by my father, even when you have a green light, you always should tap the brake. You don't know who's going to run red. And I see me doing that multiple times between 12 and 1 and 5 and 6 a.m. So I know I was driving safely, not as safely or as alert as I would be if I had no alcohol. But I was not driving recklessly by any measure.
Interesting. That's an interesting clip. I don't think I realized the entirety of that clip there. Yeah, I mean, she was drinking, right? I mean, she was drinking. She was drinking. Okay. She was drinking. We all know she was drinking. She was drinking. Great. Common sense should prevail. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, she was drinking, everybody. Well, she was drinking. Okay, so I think the one thing the Commonwealth has sufficiently established so far in their case is Karen Read was drinking. Awesome. Good job, Hank. Right? I mean, it's just, I don't know. The absurdity of this. I don't know how any of this really hurts him or hurts her and really helps him. Like, it makes her just seem like a normal person is what it seems. And if I'm looking at her next to Jennifer McCabe, I'm not so sure that Karen is the one that looks abnormal, right? I don't know. Again, hard to say because I'm so far down the rabbit hole. It's very difficult for me to know at this point, right? It's so difficult to know. It really, really is. It really, really is. All right, let's take the next one. Let's see. Clip 6.
There was a woman who was a mother to kids that were close to John's kids who lived very close to the Alberts. In fact, when Jen was navigating John to the Alberts when I was driving, she said it's near Ashley's house. Ashley and John were hooked up prior to John and I dating.
What was that? What was that? Who cares about that? I mean, somebody tell me what the significance of that was. Okay. Jen mentioned that there was Ashley's house was near the house. Okay. Okay, that seems super important, right? Thanks for that. I get it. I get what he's trying to do, but this is ridiculous. It's so absurd, right? To some of the conversations that we were having earlier, though, about the narcissism. So, okay, perfect example. perfect example of a kind of a narcissistic thing to do, right? And lots of people do this. You don't have to be narcissistic to do this, but it's a common thing a narcissist would do, which is have a wandering eye or be seeing somebody on the side and then accusing their partner of cheating endlessly, right? Because there's a lot of projection, as I said. A hallmark of narcissism is projection, is seeing themselves in other people and like pointing out things in the world that are actually behaviors that you would see as fundamental to how they operate in the world. It's very, very bizarre that they actually cannot see themselves. So, right, it's strange. It's just strange. And to that question that we were talking about earlier, in that way, just thinking about to what degree, and again, this varies. There's a spectrum with narcissism, but it is very, very common. Like someone who's a narcissist would know that cheating on their partner isn't something that they should, that their partner would want them to do, but they'll find a way to make that okay and make that, not really cheating because, fill in the blank here. So they don't see it the same way if it's their behavior versus if they're pointing it out in somebody else, because they can't do anything wrong, right? Fundamentally.
Two things. Either he's hurt himself and is incapacitated. He could be passed out on someone's couch, which is just weird. We're not on a campus. Everyone lives in their own home with children. Or he's sleeping with someone. And there were multiple women in the neighborhood of Fairview that John had been with. And one of them very recently, before I started dating John.
Right. So I'm wondering, what do you guys think about this jealousy issue, right? I mean, do we think that that this is going to be an issue for the jury? I mean, are they going to think that she was jealous and hit him on purpose? Is that what the goal here is, right? Because why else would you bring this in? Why keep referencing these other women if you're not trying to prove that she was angry and on purpose would have run him over? And here's the thing. This is the other thing that I was sort of kind of alluding to, right? Like, Karen, people do not become violent at 43 years old or 42 years old. If there was a history of violence with Karen, we would know about it, obviously. Right. So if there had been any kind of a history of violence, and I mean anything at all, right? Hitting, punching, throwing stuff at it, but there isn't. Like, we don't see violence. So there's never going to be a time at 42 years old when somebody who has this kind of attachment disorder, is what I would call it, which is I know that's a psychological jargon, but this kind of abandonment phobia is the way I would say it. There's no way that she was going to intentionally remove John. There's just no way. There's no way. What Karen wanted was more of John, not less of John. So there's no way she was going to take him out. It's absurd. It's truly absurd. And abandonment is the big phobia. And there's no way, because Karen does project, there's no way she would have ever done that to John's niece, like Kaylee. So there's no way, there's no world where Karen Reed hits John on purpose. Just not, she doesn't. It doesn't happen. It's absolutely absurd. It's so absurd. It's like, again, it's insulting. Like everything the Commonwealth does, they just insult our intelligence over and over and over again. And, and the taillight. Let's talk about the taillight. Can we talk about the taillight for a minute? The taillight. Oh my God, you guys, this taillight. What is the deal with the taillight? right? Like, okay. So you guys tell me, do you think that what do you think? What are the percentages? Did the DA's office plant taillight? Because that's who would have had to have done it. Okay. It would not have been Michael Proctor. Michael Proctor does not have the authority to just plant taillight. Okay. If they planted taillight, it would have had to have come from somebody above Michael Proctor. It had to have. Proctor also was not on the scene, as we all know. So somebody else had to have done it. So the question is, do we all think that they planted taillight? Because the question that I have, right, is don't we think, okay, so, and I want to hear from people that disagree. I really, really do, because I want to know what people on that jury, what do people think, right? But to me, there's no way that Proctor does it by himself. And I have a very hard time, because the reason why the taillight, to me, the thing that gave it away to me that there was taillight evidence planted wasn't to frame Karen because they thought that she was innocent. It was to frame Karen to make sure that she was convicted, right? And we get that from Michael Proctor in his text messages to his buddies. He tells us he's aware that that he won't be able to prove whether or not it was intentional. So we know he's thinking about what he can prove. That's day one. And to me, these cops, not the brightest bulbs, right? They 100%, like Buchanan, Proctor, they believe she did this. Like, I don't think that they're lying at all. I actually think also Jackson believes that they believe it because of some of the questioning. Yeah. Yeah. So that redhead, I'm going to put you up here. Yes. So that is precisely my theory as well. That redhead, I agree with you 100%. That's what I think happened also. But I have a lot of, I think he's responsible for all of it, actually. I think he's the silent guy in the background who's responsible for all of it. To me, that's Morrissey's right hand. But that's the question, right? The question is, okay, if you disagree, great, explain it, because I need to understand how it is that, to me, they got greedy. Had they just stuck with those 6 little pieces of taillight on the first search, that would have been enough. But they had to be greedy. They had to go out and to try to ensure the conviction, right? And then they had to go out and, get the giant pieces for the whole month of February. Come on, you guys, right? I mean, it's absurd. Yeah. Yes. Well, Tully, so Brian Tully is the lead. So he's the lieutenant detective of the district attorney's office. So he's in charge of all of the detectives in the DA's office for Norfolk County. I think at the time there was only 4, but now I believe they have a much bigger group. I think I even heard him say 18. Now, don't quote me on that. That sounds like a big jump from 4 to 18, but I know that they have a much bigger office now. But, they had to have planted the taillight evidence. Come on, it's absurd. They didn't. Why wouldn't they have made any effort to document where the taillight pieces were found, right? Why don't we have video and cameras? You guys are all people who have tracked true crimes in your lives. Have you ever seen anything like this before? With evidence, just the way that they were so cavalier about like throwing taillight in a bag and labeling and, oh yeah, it was in the vicinity, so we didn't need to mark where it was. What? This is crazy. This is absurd, right? It's absurd. They took photos, but go back and look. So compare the photos that they showed us, those real close-up photos that they showed without any measurement next to them. And then look at other investigations real investigations, even investigations that they've done if you compare their investigations to this case with other cases, you'll see that, they didn't call in the investigators, the people that you would call in, the teams that you would call in, kind of like the CERT team, though not the CERT team, to do a thorough crime scene investigation, which is another weird point about this, that they wanted to do it themselves, which was not standard operating procedure. Nothing is sufficiently documented. And wouldn't you think that it's a fellow brother in blue? Wouldn't you want it all done absolutely above board so that you absolutely guarantee there'd be a conviction? But they didn't do that. So it's just so bizarre. It's so bizarre. And that's right? And there are other courts in the U.S. where judges don't allow evidence in if there is no chain of custody. Nope, that's not legitimate evidence. Not Judge Bev, of course. Here we are. Absolutely absurd. All right, let's get through these. Let's see. Clip 8. There's only a few more after this. I think there's 10.
Clip 16, please.
I'm with Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts, and Carrie Roberts is Ford Explorer. And I'm in the back, leaning over the front two seats. Carrie's driving and Jen's in the passenger seat. And I describe this to everyone, so you've probably heard this before, but John looked like a buffalo on the prairie. It was just a lawn and a heat that it wasn't a bush or a hydrant or a dog. It was a weird shaped lump at that time in those elements. And I was looking to find him on the side of the road. I was expecting I'd find him. And the fear of what I was going to see is the worst feeling I've ever experienced. The anticipation of what is awaiting me was as extreme a feeling. I wouldn't say it was as extreme a feeling as the grief of realizing what happened to him.
That was an interesting clip. I wonder what you guys think about that. Interesting clip there. I will tell you something. Having been to that house, it makes a lot more sense to me why she would have seen him, because this lawn is tiny and it's right on top of the road. It would be impossible not to see him. I'm telling you. I know it was snowing. I get it, all of that, but it would have been impossible. The road is not, there's no sidewalk. It's not like the road begins to curve. That's where their property starts. And there's no separation. Like, you would have been right on top of the property. Like, she would have definitely seen him. There's no way you couldn't have seen him. Okay. I don't care how much snow had fallen. This is a tiny front lawn. It's just crazy. It really is. It's crazy. Kristen O'Brien says, Sam as an mass manager. I can't read it. Sam as a mass manager. I know 3, literally. If blood are, what does it say? If blood are missing. I'm so sorry. I can't see this. Blood everywhere. John was just killed elsewhere. Right. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you. And yes. So, right. That is a great question. Where was all the blood, right? I think that's what somebody else was asking too. Well, that is a great question. And where was all the blood? Now, I think the Commonwealth is trying to argue that because it was on his body, it froze, whatever, because of the cold, that it stopped, I don't know, the bleeding, some nonsense. But I mean, to me, it's in the basement. I mean, that's the answer to the question, right? But yes, obviously. And that actually, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because this came up. I was talking to a seasoned police detective, and that was the first thing he said. The first thing that this cop mentioned was, where's all the blood? Because he had the gaping wound in the back of his head. Why wasn't he laying in a puddle of blood? And I think that's obviously a very legitimate question, right? Right. So then there is this question about, you know, was the way that Karen was talking about John in that clip, was that insensitive? Right? Like the way that she found him, I don't know. I mean, it's very, very difficult to extrapolate any significant meaning from these clips. You know, I really don't know what to make of them. I really, really don't know. I don't know. And I think there's one more. Let's just get to this last one.
I mean, I didn't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him? Could I have tapped him in the knee and incapacitated him? He didn't look mortally wounded as far as I could see, but could I have done something that knocked him out and in drunkenness and in the cold didn't come to again?
In this particular moment, you would drop him off at the party.
Yeah, would have had to.
Whoa, that's an intense one. Kathy, thank you so much for, okay, so hello from, I'm trying to read this, Brisbane, Australia. Thank you so much for your illuminating channel. Do you think that Carrie Roberts knew she had been manipulated, or did she really think JM was her friend? Absolutely, she thinks that that's her friend. Absolutely, she does not know. Has no idea. And thank you so much for the $20. She has no idea. No idea. She absolutely has no idea. So unfortunately, I think Jen McCabe's number one job in all of this has been to do exactly what she's done to Carrie. I mean, if you look at the phone records the next day, she spent the entire day, I think there's 30 phone calls, calling her, making sure to, care about her, show, like, be overly invested in her well-being. She's kept her so close. And to me, that's why I feel like if anyone, somebody mentioned this earlier, if anyone seems like sociopathic, it does seem like it would have been Jennifer McCabe, because of how creepy it is, the lengths that she's going to try to make everybody believe that she's this, innocent soccer mom. And the crazy part about it is I don't actually think that she did anything. I don't think she was the one that murdered John, right? But these people, they're gonna die on the sword for each other. I mean, at the end of the day, the only way, this is really where I've come, because I've thought about this endlessly, right? The only way that these guys, that Brian Albert, him in particular, because this is an interesting character. This guy's got a lot on the line. He's got a huge reputation in this community, not just with his family, but in the community. You think these cops didn't know who Brian Albert was? The guy who had been on that Boston's Finest reality show, featured, he was on like the police boxing team. Like, they knew who he was. And he 100% had a reputation. He was the undercover guy. He was a bounty hunter. He's a big, strong, tough guy, 35 years in the force. They knew who he was 100%. And I just don't think that this guy would risk everything unless it was to protect a family member. Does that make, like, I just don't think, I do not think there's any, the only way that I think Brian Albert would allow someone to die on his property, another cop, and not call the ambulance immediately is if there was a question about his nephew or somebody he loves and cares about possibly going to prison for the rest of their lives. There's no other possibility. There's no other way. He's not going to do it for Brian Higgins. Believe me, he's not doing it for Higgins. There had to be something else. There's something else. That's why Colin had to have been involved, because they all have a lot they all have a lot to lose. But the truth is that, right, like they had these big reputations and probably on their own would have been able to stare down anything because of those reputations. In other words, let's say that Brian Albert had accidentally, been in a fight with John and accidentally, murdered him. If it was just Brian Albert and John O'Keefe, my guess is that even in that case, Brian Albert probably would have takes the hit, but not if it's his nephew. Not if it's his nephew who had already been in trouble quite a bit. And Colin looked up to Brian. I just feel like the only way this family does this is if they are protecting Colin. I cannot imagine what else they would die on the sword for. It just doesn't make sense. Right? Does that make sense? I mean, because there's no other way. I just don't. And the fact that there were all these other people around. So that's the other thing. And I would love to know, do you guys think that Sarah Levinson knows what happened? Or do you think that she's, didn't see him come in the house? Because there's a real possibility. Think about it. Jen McCabe offered to drive the girls home, right? Maybe she was doing to them what she did to Carrie. Maybe she was just getting them out of the house when they needed her to get them out of the house so that, they could deal with whatever was going on in the house. Maybe, maybe those two girls, Sarah Levinson and forget the other girl's name. I always forget her name. Nagel, right? Yes. Nagel. Julie Nagel. Maybe the two of them didn't see anything, right? I mean, maybe. Because here's the thing. The more people, and Brian Albert is not a dummy, and I believe that he's the architect of this. He had to be, right? This is his house. There's no way this man is not architecting how this plays out. So to me, the more people that you involve in this kind of thing, come on, you think Sarah Levinson isn't going to run home and tell everybody she knows what just happened if Brian actually dies at the house and she sees it? I don't believe that. They would never be okay with all these people running around in the world, right? That's my guess. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I have to believe that these people did not see it happen. I have to. I know. So somebody said this here. I'll play the. I thought about this too. I think it's possible that John might have accidentally gone into the garage door. Absolutely. I definitely thought that too for a second, mostly because Jen McCabe has that ridiculous, overly, just this inflated response to the question. I don't know if you caught this during the trial, during her testimony. So, Alan Jackson is cross-examining her and he's showing her the picture of the house. And he's like, well, there's another door. And she's like, oh, yeah, there is. She's never known there was another door there, which was very, very bizarre. That's what flagged it, right? That's why it got all of on our radar, because Jen McCabe acted like it was the first time she'd ever seen the door. A little bizarre. I did think about that. I also have thought about the fact that, because we were talking earlier, how hard it would be to get John, lifeless body John, out of that house. How many men that would actually take and how difficult that would actually be. I did think about the fact that could it have been that Brian Higgins was waiting for John outside, waiting to talk to him by the garage. Maybe Colin's in there smoking a cigarette or I don't know, doing something. But the problem with the being out in the front theory is the dog. Because if you look at, there's actually photos, believe it or not, that are accessible online of what it looks like to get attacked by a dog. And if you compare that arm to what it looks like to get attacked by a dog, it looks exactly the same. So, and I'm going based on that. Yeah, obviously, there's lots of other indicators of that. But if we're going based on that, it really does look like Chloe was involved in this. And if that's the case, she wasn't out front and she never would have been out front, right? So it doesn't make sense that how would the dog have gotten involved if they were fighting in front of the house? Right? That's the question. Yes, absolutely variant. Yes. Yep. Yeah. So John's phone went downstairs. Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And it was too cold outside. So the temperature on the phone would have kept plummeting. Yeah. That's very, 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 very true. I think that's right. I think that's why they had to have been in the basement, right? I keep going around from the garage back to the basement simply because there would have had to have been big, strong men to carry him out of that house. It would not have been easy to do. He was a big guy. And that's another thing that was a strange thing that Jen McCabe, I don't know if you caught this either, but Alan Jackson, and maybe she's just being difficult to be difficult. This is why I need to go back and actually do the lie detection kind of assessment of her testimony, which I have not gone back to do yet. I wonder, she makes this statement. John wasn't that big. So Alan Jackson's like, John was a big boy. And she's like, no, he wasn't. I don't think so. Okay. That was weird. Why would you argue that? He was 6'2" and like 220. That's not big. I don't know. I and maybe I'm nitpicking because I know too much, but to me, just these people, there's something wrong. Like there's just something there's something wrong. It is just so obvious. It's crazy. All right, let's play this last one. There's one more.
Absolutely more than Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe, it's me or her. Either I'm going down, Jen, or you are.
Yeah, so that one, what the hell? Why is Hank Brennan playing that clip? Can somebody explain that? Why? What was Hank Brennan thinking? Like that was going to prove that she was violent? Was that the idea? Like it's me or Jen? Why does Hank Brennan think it's a good idea? Like what goes on in this man's mind, right? I don't want to know, really. I really, really don't. Okay. Canton Fire Department sends 20 and says John's health data moved for 1 minute. Hold on. Let me move this. Hold on a second. Hey, there we go. Okay. John's health data moved for 1 minute. John's GPS reached front door. Albert's have violent dog. Yes. John had never been there before. Yep. So John opens the wrong door. Chloe attacks. Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Interesting. Okay. So let me read this again. The Alberts had the violent dog. John has never been there before. So John opens the door. Chloe attacks, gets the punctures, scratches, and head wound like he fell backwards, then is dumped. Yeah, I mean, let's think about that. The only problem with that, it doesn't account for the bruises to the front of his hands. It doesn't account for the bruises. So John, I have a video you should check out. Breaks down all of his injuries according to the ME and the woman who did the extensive brain examination of John. He had 2 injuries right to the temporal lobe. So basically he was hit here, like right above where a knuckle would have hit right above the eyebrow. So right here, and then to the side of the head right here. So he would have had to have been hit here, and he probably hit something because the only place on his body that he has bruises is here. And I thank you for that, Canton Fire Department, because I keep coming back to that too, like maybe just Chloe just got him. But then I remember, no, he had to have been punched, because in addition to the gash in the back of his head, he also has a laceration and bruising internally, brain bleeding behind this eye and to the temporal lobe here. So there was definitely, you know, I guess two punches, I don't know how else to say it, above the right eye and then to the left side of his head, in addition to the back. So, and there was no other bruises on the body except for the two behind. Like if you look at his, the back of his hand, they're like black and blue, and there's no other bruises anywhere else, which is the reason why we know he wasn't hit by a car, because it's impossible. It's impossible. It's just not possible. Yeah. And if you go back and look really carefully at all of it, yeah, I mean, it's brutal. It's brutal. That's so, and that's the thing, right? I mean, this is what the Commonwealth did not do, because what happened here was these two stupid detectives named Yuri Buchanan and Michael Proctor were the two men that were essentially assigned this case because they were partners. So yeah, Proctor was the one that was assigned the case. And then the Buchanan was his sergeant, but was also his partner. So it was their case. And they just right away, I mean, think about it. They're trying to say that these relationships didn't affect Michael Proctor, but you put yourself in their position, okay? Maybe you're not best friends with Brian Albert, but you absolutely know who he is. Your sister is knee deep with relationships all over this family. And he's really close to his sister, right? So you think that that's not affecting Michael Proctor? I mean, of course he's going to believe whatever Brian Albert tells him. Of course he is, right? I mean, think about it. Put yourself in that position. Like, you know how inconvenient it would be if Michael Proctor was to try to question? What do you think it would have been like for Michael Proctor if he had gotten a search warrant and brought a, troop of cops into Brian Albert's house? I mean, it's like, when you think about it that way, it's like, of course it makes sense that he didn't do that, because he was never going to do that, right? Of course not. They were too stupid to actually even investigate this case the way it needed to be investigated, because so right from the start, and they both have said this, and I have to tell you, I think I believe them. I know there's a whole thing about the sneakers, and we can definitely talk about that. But the fact that both of these guys saw that he had lost a shoe, and that was it. It was like for both Proctor and Buchanan, John lost a shoe. He was hit by a car. That's it. Case closed. We solved it. Let's move on. I mean, it's absurd, but that's like Jen McCabe plus one shoe equals John got hit by a car. Let's not actually explore any of the injuries and whether or not the injuries actually line up with a car accident. Let's just assume that's what happened. Okay, great. And we move on. Right? So, I mean, I get it from their perspective, but don't you want to be thorough? Like, don't you want to investigate all possible leads instead of just decide within 4 hours of starting your investigation that Karen Reed hit him? I mean, it's just, I don't know. And that's the other thing. Yeah. So the Emmy did say, she said she said that he died from a combination of hypothermia and the wound in the back of his head. But I believe there's going to be another expert for the defense testifying that it wasn't hypothermia. And the thing that I kept asking myself is, what about frostbite? Because exactly, somebody else just brought it up in the chat. He would have had frostbite. So, right, having been somebody who grew up in Massachusetts, during middle school and high school, did a lot of skiing and snowboarding, and your limbs are going to get cold. And if you're sitting out there with no gloves on for 6 hours in the snow, you're going to have frostbite. And there wasn't frostbite. So that's another thing, like just another piece of evidence that says John couldn't have been out there like that. He couldn't have been. It's just couldn't have been. So, and this is where the reasonable doubt just starts to pile on. And you just hope that someday somebody like the feds or somebody comes along and tells us what actually happened, because it's going to drive all of us insane. But the more that I dig, and really you have to dig, the more I believe that Tully is the minion for the DA. That's the DA's little minion is Brian Tully. He's also the guy that's trying to put Turtle Boy in jail, single-handedly trying to put Turtle Boy in jail, which is a crazy story. If you haven't heard all of that from Turtle Boy, you should. It's crazy. It's just crazy. But, you know, he's the head of the detectives for Norfolk County, and it all goes back to him. He's been involved in every testimony right next to Hank Brennan for this trial, for the last trial. He testifies for the last trial, which is fascinating. If you want to know, when Proctor says all the powers that be want answers, guess who all the powers that be are? Oh, Brian Tully, right? The DA, District Attorney's Office. So it's you know, I just think Proctor took the hit for everybody. And I wonder, like, geez, how are they going to get this guy to keep his mouth shut? You know, I mean, I guess he's just going to quietly go away quietly. I don't know. If I were him, though, I'd be pissed. And that's the other thing. In my assessment, in my analysis, I watched Buchanan. I watched him very, very closely. And everything that that Buchanan says, I mean, let me tell you, the few times that he gets extraordinarily rattled, and I mean really rattled, like he gets rattled, and there are some tells. He has some tells, which I don't have time to go through with you right now, but it's when it is in the moments where he is being asked, basically, he loved Michael Proctor, and it kills him that Michael Proctor is fired. He thinks it's totally unjust, and that's why he can't let Proctor be thrown under the bus. So that's why, you know, it would have been really easy. Like, that's the funny part. I think Hank thought that Buchanan was going to throw Michael Proctor under the bus and just say, yeah, he was a bad seed, but, you know, everything else is on the up and up. And he didn't do that. He essentially doubled down and he fought for Proctor, saying that Proctor, you know, handled himself with integrity and honor and dignity and all this garbage, gave him the glowing review. And when you really analyze, like from a lie detector perspective, Buchanan's testimony, he loved Michael Proctor and it destroys him. He thinks it's so unjust that that Proctor was fired, and it makes him furious. At one point, he gets so angry about it that he's shaking on the stand. It's crazy. Good question. So, Nola, CPA, I live in New York City. I've lived in New York City for 20 years, Mother's Day, 2005. So 20 years, but I grew up in Massachusetts. My boyfriend lives in Massachusetts, or in Connecticut, on the Massachusetts-Connecticut line. And my mother's family is in Western Massachusetts, and my father's family is from the city, New York City. So I go back and forth, but New York City is my residence at the present. So, you know, this is like this case, like the gift that just keeps on giving, you guys. It really, really is. And I think that's it for me for tonight. We're going to all have to get up early and go back at it tomorrow. And you know, I'm right with you guys. I could do this all night. I could just, you know, just rehash all of this, because it's, you know, obviously all of us are living it and breathing it all day, every day. You get so into this case. It's like, it just gets you, right? It's nuts. Yes. And the whole thing with the honor and integrity, I mean, it is just absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I mean, he's got some nerve, Buchanan, right? Some nerve. The best moment for me, and maybe we'll have to do the next time, because I really want to hear from all of you. Like, what were the highlights from Buchanan's testimony? One of the moments that was the greatest was when Alan Jackson asks him about what was your take on these text messages between Higgins and Karen, and he calls them flirty texts. He's like, did you think they were flirty text messages? And he's like, no, right? So of course he's denying it. And so then we all get to that moment where even the judge, so Jackson's like, okay, well, will it help you if will it refresh your memory to read the text messages? Right? So, and we're all thinking like, no, he's not going to read all the text messages. He's not going to make him read all the text messages. Even the judge says it. And sure enough, he makes him read all the text. I mean, it was just like one of the great moments, right, in this trial so far. Because you're like, oh my God, he's about to read 150 text messages. I've read those messages, by the way. I've analyzed those messages, like, and it is a lot. There were 92 when I analyzed them, and this was all of them. This last time, Yuri read all of them, and there was another probably 30 messages that I didn't get to read that Lally didn't go over in the last trial. So, man, they did send a lot of text back and forth. And they're fun to analyze. I feel you really get to know them if you have nothing to do and you you want to deep dive. Go back, go through the text messages. You really get to know a lot more about Karen, and you get to know a lot about Brian Higgins, and you get to know about their interaction. And I will tell you, from having studied those text messages now multiple times, that Brian Higgins, that's another thing. So this is to Brian Higgins' role in all of this. He liked Karen. And you know what makes me the most suspicious of him after having read those texts, studied those text messages, is the fact that he never responded to Karen after John died. Because, right, Karen, she does text him back. He writes the 11:30 on the 28th, right? And then that morning on the 29th, I think it was I can't remember the exact time. 11:30? No, it was afternoon. 1:30, I think, maybe, that she writes back and she says, John's dead. And he doesn't say anything. To me, that tells you everything you need to know about Brian Higgins and his role in this case. He definitely at least knew what happened, because at that point, there would have been no reason at all for him not to respond to her. Nobody was going to know he responded to her. Think about it that way. Brian Albert was never going to find out that he was texted Karen Reed back, not unless he told him, right? So why wouldn't he have texted her back unless he was involved? This was a guy every step of the way. I don't care what Yuri Buchanan says, every step of the way. At every step of the way, he did not want to let Karen go. He liked her. He liked her, and he wanted a relationship with her. He wasn't just looking to hook up with her. He wanted a relationship with Karen. Like, he was seriously trying. We would have so much fun, like, I don't know. But the fact that he just never writes back after she says John is dead, to me, that tells me there is a reason that he didn't write back to say, I'm sorry, Karen. I'm so sorry to hear that. I mean, nothing. Tell me that's not weird. That's weird. That's weird. But that's a conversation for another night. Everybody, I thank you so much for your support. I thank you for your super chats and stickers and comments and participation. It is so much fun getting to talk about the case with you guys. And so hopefully we get to do it again soon. Everybody enjoy the rest of your night. And I will see you again soon. Be safe. Be well. Good night. Good night, everybody. Wait. Oh, no. Wait. I'm really leaving this time. Bye.